every life when the noise of the world fades just enough for you to hear your own truth. Not the version shaped by fear, nor the one molded by others' expectations, but the steady, undeniable voice within you that whispers, you are meant for more than reaction, more than confusion, more than chaos. Yet so many of us move through life feeling pulled in every direction, as if control belongs to circumstances, to people, to chance. But what if I told you that the power you seek has never been outside of you, that your peace, your direction, your very destiny rests gently in your own hands, not in controlling the world, but in mastering the few sacred things within you? Today, we step into that truth together and discover how, by controlling just 4 things, you can finally take ownership of your life. The mind is a quiet architect, building worlds long before the hands ever lift a stone. Every thought you hold, whether gentle or harsh, becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. If you wake each day expecting struggle, your spirit will walk as if burdened before the weight even arrives. But if you dare to believe in possibility, even in the smallest measure, something within you begins to rise, softly at first, then with a strength that cannot be easily shaken. Your thoughts are not idle visitors, they are seeds, and whatever you allow to take root will one day grow into the reality you must stand in. Too often, we become prisoners of unexamined thinking. We repeat silent phrases taught by disappointment. I am not enough, I cannot win, this is just how life is. And without question, we bow to them as though they were truths carved in stone. But they are not truths, they are habits, and habits, no matter how old, can be broken. The moment you begin to challenge a limiting thought, you loosen its grip. The moment you replace it with something kinder, something braver, you begin to reclaim your ground. This is not about pretending life is easy. It is about refusing to let your mind become a place where defeat feels like home. There is a discipline in choosing your thoughts, just as there is a discipline in choosing your path. It requires awareness, the willingness to pause and ask yourself, is this thought helping me grow, or is it holding me back? Not every thought deserves your belief. Some arrive from fear, some from past wounds, and some from voices that were never meant to define you. You have the authority to decide which ones may stay and which must leave. And in that decision, you begin to shape not only your mindset, but your future. When you nurture thoughts of courage, you begin to act with courage. When you hold on to thoughts of worth, you begin to carry yourself with dignity. And when your mind learns to seek light, even in the midst of darkness, you discover a resilience that no circumstance can easily break. Life may still test you, challenge you, and stretch you in ways you did not expect, but your thoughts will determine whether those moments define you or refine you. So guard your mind with intention. Speak to yourself with the same grace you offer to others. Feed your spirit with ideas that uplift rather than diminish. For in the quiet, unseen space of your thinking, your life is being shaped every single day. And when you take control of that space, when you choose thoughts that empower rather than imprison, you step into a kind of freedom that no one can take from you. Emotions arrive like uninvited guests, sometimes gentle as a summer breeze, other times fierce as a storm that rattles every window of your soul. They do not ask for permission, and they do not always arrive at convenient times. You may feel joy in a moment meant for silence, or anger in a moment that demands patience. This is the nature of being human. To feel is not a weakness, it is a gift. But there is a quiet strength in learning that while emotions may visit, they do not have the right to take command of your life. Too many people surrender their direction to the rise and fall of their feelings. When happiness comes, they move with confidence, but when sadness settles in, they shrink as though all light has been taken from them. When anger flares, they speak words they cannot take back, and when fear whispers, they abandon paths that once called their name. In this way, emotions become rulers rather than companions. But you were never meant to be governed by every feeling that passes through you. You were meant to witness them, to understand them, and then to choose your response with intention. There is wisdom in pausing between feeling and action. In that small, sacred space, you reclaim your power. You allow yourself to say, I feel this, but I do not have to become this. Anger may rise, but it does not have to become destruction. Fear may knock at your door, but it does not have to decide whether you move forward. Even sorrow, heavy as it may be, does not have to silence your hope. When you learn to sit with your emotions rather than be swept away by them, you begin to understand that they are signals, not commands. And yet, mastering your emotions does not mean suppressing them or pretending they do not exist. What is buried does not disappear, it only grows louder in the shadows. True mastery comes from acknowledgement, naming what you feel without judgment, allowing it space without giving it control. There is courage in saying, I am hurt, without turning that hurt into harm. There is strength in admitting, I am afraid, and still choosing to take a step forward. This is the balance between feeling deeply and living wisely. Over time, as you practice this awareness, something within you begins to steady. You no longer react to every wave. You learn to stand firm even as the tide rises. Your peace becomes less fragile, no longer dependent on everything going right, but rooted in your ability to remain centered when things go wrong. Others may try to provoke you, circumstances may try to shake you, but there is a calm within you that refuses to be easily disturbed. And in that calm, you find a deeper kind of freedom, the freedom to choose who you will be, regardless of what you feel in any given moment. Because emotions are powerful, yes, but they are not the author of your life. You are. Words are small things, easily spoken and quickly forgotten by the one who releases them. Yet they carry a weight that can linger in the heart of another for a lifetime. A single sentence can become a shelter, or it can become a wound. And too often, we speak without recognizing the power resting on our tongues. We let words slip out in moments of anger, in moments of pride, in moments when silence would have served us far better. But once spoken, words do not return to us. They travel outward, shaping how others see us and how we quietly come to see ourselves. There is a discipline in learning when to speak and when to remain still. Not every thought deserves a voice, and not every truth must be delivered without care. The world does not lack noise, it lacks intention. When you choose your words with purpose, you begin to separate yourself from the chaos. You no longer speak to prove a point or to win a moment. You speak to build, to heal, to bring clarity where confusion once lived. And sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is choosing not to speak at all. Many have been taught that strength lies in speaking loudly, in having the final word, in making sure their voice is always heard. But there is a deeper strength found in restraint. It is the strength to hold your peace when anger rises in your chest, the strength to walk away from conversations that invite you to lower your character, the strength to recognize that silence, when chosen wisely, is not weakness, it is control. In that silence, you protect your dignity, your energy, and your sense of self. And yet, discipline in words is not only about holding back, it is also about knowing when to speak life. There are moments when someone stands before you carrying unseen burdens, and your words can become a light in their darkness. A kind sentence, a sincere acknowledgement, a reminder of worth. These are not small things. They are seeds planted in the soil of another person's spirit, and you may never fully see what grows from them, but that does not lessen their impact. The words you speak to yourself carry just as much power. Long before the world hears your voice, your mind has already been listening. If you fill your inner world with criticism and doubt, your outer world will begin to reflect it. But if you learn to speak to yourself with patience, with encouragement, with truth instead of harsh judgment, you begin to build a foundation that cannot be easily shaken by the opinions of others. You become your own source of reassurance in moments when the world feels uncertain. So choose your words as though they matter, because they do. Let them be measured, let them be meaningful, let them reflect the kind of life you wish to live. And when words are not needed, do not be afraid of silence, for in mastering what you say and what you refuse to say, you step into a quiet authority that few truly understand, but all can feel. There is a moment, so brief it can almost be missed, between what happens to you and how you respond to it. In that moment lies a quiet power, one that many overlook, yet it holds the shape of your character and the direction of your life. The world will not always be gentle. People will misunderstand you, challenge you, test your patience, and sometimes even try to pull you into battles you never asked to fight. But what they do is only half the story. The rest is written by how you choose to respond. Too often, reactions come quickly, like sparks to dry wood. A harsh word meets a harsher reply. A moment of disrespect turns into a lasting conflict. And before long, you find yourself entangled in something that began with a single, uncontrolled response. In those moments, it may feel as though you are defending yourself, proving your strength, or standing your ground. But true strength does not always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it reveals itself in what you choose not to engage with. To control your reaction is not to become passive or indifferent. It is to become intentional. It is to understand that not everything deserves your energy, your voice, or your peace. When you pause, when you allow yourself even a breath before responding, you create space for clarity to enter. And in that space, you can ask yourself a question that changes everything. Will this response move me closer to who I want to be or further away? There is dignity in restraint. There is wisdom in choosing calm when chaos invites you to rise in anger. Anyone can react in the heat of the moment, but it takes a deeper kind of strength to remain steady when everything around you is urging you to lose control. When you master this, you begin to notice a shift, not just in how others perceive you, but in how you experience life itself. Situations that once drained you no longer hold the same power. Words that once unsettled you begin to lose their sting. And yet, controlling your reaction does not mean silencing your truth. There are times when you must speak, when you must set a boundary, when you must stand firm in your values. But even then, the power lies in how you do it. A calm voice carries further than a raised one. A measured response holds more weight than a reckless outburst. When your reaction is guided by purpose rather than impulse, it becomes something far greater than a defense. It becomes a reflection of your inner discipline. As you begin to practice this, you will find that peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you protect. You will walk into situations with a steadiness that cannot be easily shaken, because you understand that while you cannot control every action directed toward you, you will always have authority over your response. And in that authority, there is freedom. So let others act as they will. Let circumstances unfold as they must. But hold firmly to this truth. Your reaction is your responsibility, and within it lies your power. When you learn to master it, you are no longer at the mercy of the world. You become the calm within it. There is a quiet agreement you make with the world long before you ever speak a word, and it is written in the way you treat yourself. Not in grand gestures or public declarations, but in the small, unseen moments, how you speak to your own reflection, what you allow into your space, what you tolerate when it unsettles your spirit. These moments form a standard, and that standard becomes a message. Without saying it aloud, you are teaching others how to meet you, how to value you, and how far they are allowed to go. Too often, people search for respect in the hands of others while quietly abandoning it within themselves. They accept less than they deserve, excuse what diminishes them, and remain in spaces that ask them to shrink just to belong. And when this becomes a pattern, it begins to feel normal, even expected. But the truth is, respect does not begin with what others offer you. It begins with what you are willing to accept. When you lower your standards for yourself, the world rarely raises them for you. There is strength in deciding that you will no longer participate in your own diminishment. It may not be loud, and it may not be understood by everyone around you, but it is deeply transformative. It shows in the way you set boundaries without apology, in the way you walk away from what does not honor you, in the way you choose environments that allow you to grow rather than places that keep you confined. Self-respect is not arrogance, nor is it distance. It is clarity. It is knowing your worth without needing to prove it at every turn. And yet, this kind of respect requires honesty. It asks you to look at your own habits, your own choices, and the ways you may have been complicit in accepting less than you deserve. This is not a place for harsh judgment, but for gentle awareness. Because once you see it, you gain the power to change it. You begin to make decisions not from a place of fear or loneliness, but from a place of alignment with who you truly are and who you are becoming. As you begin to honor yourself more deeply, something shifts in the way others respond to you. It is not that the world suddenly becomes kinder, but that you become more discerning. You no longer entertain every invitation, no longer engage in every conversation, no longer give your energy where it is not valued. And in doing so, you create space for respect, for sincerity, for connections that reflect the standard you have set within yourself. This is not always an easy path. There may be moments of solitude, moments where choosing yourself feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But within that discomfort is growth. Within that choice is a quiet declaration that you are no longer willing to be defined by what you once accepted. You are choosing something higher, something steadier, something rooted in dignity. So treat yourself with care, with patience, with unwavering regard. Let your actions reflect the value you hold within. Because when you stand firmly in your own self-respect, you do not have to demand it from others. It becomes something they recognize, something they either rise to meet or quietly fall away from. And in that space, you begin to live not by the approval of the world, but by the truth of your own worth. There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself with noise, nor does it seek attention in the midst of conflict. It lives quietly within those who understand that not every situation requires a response, not every challenge requires engagement, and not every voice raised against you deserves an answer. In a world that often equates power with being the loudest in the room, stillness can appear misunderstood, even mistaken for weakness. Yet, in truth, stillness is often the clearest expression of inner control, the ability to remain grounded when everything around you is trying to pull you into reaction. There will always be moments when you are provoked, questioned, or even disrespected. In those moments, the instinct to defend yourself may rise quickly, urging you to speak, to explain, to justify your place or your worth. But not every battle is yours to fight, and not every silence means surrender. Sometimes choosing stillness is choosing wisdom. It is recognizing that your peace is more valuable than proving a point, that your energy is better preserved than spent on what does not truly matter in the long run. Stillness allows you to observe rather than react, to understand rather than assume, to respond with clarity instead of emotion. When you step back from immediate reaction, you gain perspective. You begin to see the situation as it is, not as your impulse interprets it in the heat of the moment. In that space, your decisions become more thoughtful, your words more measured, and your actions more aligned with the person you are striving to become. This is where strength quietly reveals itself, not in the urgency to act, but in the patience to wait. There is also a certain freedom in learning that you do not need to engage in every conflict presented to you. Some arguments are not meant to be won, they are meant to be avoided. Some tensions are not meant to be resolved through confrontation, but through distance. When you understand this, you begin to conserve your energy for what truly deserves it: your growth, your purpose, your peace of mind. You stop scattering your focus across distractions and begin to gather it around what actually builds your life. Stillness does not mean you have nothing to say. It means you understand the value of timing. When you do choose to speak, your words carry more weight because they are not diluted by unnecessary noise. When you do choose to act, your actions carry more intention because they are not driven by impulse. In this way, stillness becomes not an absence of power, but a refinement of it. Over time, practicing stillness reshapes how you move through the world. You become less reactive and more intentional, less easily disturbed and more internally steady. Situations that once would have pulled you into frustration begin to pass without leaving the same mark. You realize that your calm is not dependent on external circumstances, but something you carry within you, something you protect, something you return to again and again. And in that quiet strength, you discover a truth that cannot be shaken easily, that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, and the most meaningful victory is the one where you preserve your peace while everything around you tries to take it away. Every direction your life has taken has, in some quiet way, been shaped by the choices you have made, some deliberate, others made in haste, and many made without full awareness of their weight. It is easy at times to believe that life happens to you, that circumstances arrive uninvited and carry you along their current without regard for your will. But if you look closely, you will find that within even the smallest moments, there has always been a point where a choice was present, where a path was selected, where one step followed another, because of a decision that may not have seemed significant at the time. To own your choices is to step into a deeper level of honesty with yourself. It is to acknowledge that while you may not control every situation that enters your life, you do have influence over how you respond to it, what you accept, and where you choose to go from there. This kind of ownership does not place blame upon you in a harsh or unforgiving way. Rather, it places power back into your hands. Because when you accept that your decisions matter, you also accept that your future is not fixed. It is still being written, moment by moment, through the direction you choose to take. There is a quiet turning point in a person's life when excuses begin to lose their appeal. No longer does it feel satisfying to attribute every setback to outside forces, nor does it feel comforting to remain in a position where change is always expected but never initiated. In that turning point, responsibility begins to feel less like a burden and more like an opportunity to reassess, to realign, and to move forward with intention rather than drift without direction. Owning your choices also means accepting the outcomes that follow them, even when those outcomes are uncomfortable. There is growth in recognizing that mistakes are not permanent definitions of who you are, but reflections of what you have learned along the way. Each decision carries a lesson, and each lesson, when embraced, becomes a guide for the next choice you make. In this way, even missteps contribute to your progress, not by excusing them, but by understanding them. As you begin to take full responsibility for your decisions, something within you starts to shift. You become more mindful of where you invest your time, who you allow into your life, and what paths you are willing to continue walking. You begin to pause before choosing, to consider not only the immediate comfort of a decision, but its long-term impact. This awareness creates a sense of alignment where your actions are no longer scattered, but directed towards something meaningful and consistent. And in that alignment, confidence grows, not the kind that depends on certainty, but the kind that comes from knowing you are actively participating in shaping your life. You no longer feel carried by circumstances alone, but grounded in the understanding that your direction is something you can influence. Each choice, no matter how small, becomes a building block, and over time, those blocks form the foundation of the life you stand upon. To own your choices is to accept both the responsibility and the freedom that come with them. Responsibility, because your path reflects your decisions, and freedom, because at any moment you can choose differently. And in that ability lies the quiet, enduring power to move your life not by chance, but by intention. Not every presence that enters your life is meant to remain there, and not every interaction is meant to be given equal weight. There are moments when you must recognize that your time, your attention, and your emotional capacity are limited resources, and how you choose to distribute them will quietly shape the quality of your inner world. To guard your energy is not to shut yourself away from others, nor is it to live with suspicion or distance. It is to move through life with awareness, understanding that what you consistently allow into your space will influence how you think, how you feel, and ultimately how you live. Energy is often spent without notice, a conversation that leaves you feeling drained, a relationship that requires constant emotional repair, or an environment that pulls you into tension rather than peace. These things accumulate over time. At first, they may seem small, manageable, even unworthy of concern. But when repeated, they begin to shape your mood, your mindset, and your sense of stability. Without realizing it, you may find yourself carrying heaviness that does not belong to you, reacting to stress that you did not create, or losing clarity in spaces that do not support your growth. There is wisdom in learning to observe how you feel after certain interactions, not just in the moment, but afterward, when the conversation ends, when the environment quiets, when you are left alone with your thoughts. Do you feel uplifted, steady, and clear, or do you feel scattered, unsettled, and depleted? These subtle signals are not accidental, they are guidance. They reveal what nourishes you and what gradually erodes your sense of balance. When you begin to listen to these signals, you become more intentional about where you invest yourself. Guarding your energy also means understanding that access to you is not something that must be given freely to everyone. Some people will appreciate your presence, your effort, and your openness. Others may take without considering the cost. It is not about labeling people as good or bad, but about recognizing compatibility, respect, and mutual care. Not every connection is meant to go deep, and not every relationship is meant to last in the same form. Accepting this allows you to engage with others without losing yourself in the process. There is strength in setting boundaries that protect your peace. Boundaries are not barriers meant to isolate you. They are guidelines that help you maintain balance. They define where your responsibility ends and where others must take responsibility for themselves. When you establish these limits, you create a structure within which you can give without overextending, listen without absorbing, and care without depleting yourself. Over time, as you become more mindful of how your energy is used, you begin to notice a change in your overall well-being. Your mind feels clearer, your emotions more stable, and your sense of direction more focused. You are no longer constantly reacting to external demands, but choosing with intention where your attention belongs. In doing so, you protect not only your time, but your inner calm, your clarity, and your ability to show up fully for the things that truly matter. To guard your energy is to honor your inner life. It is to recognize that what you allow into your space will, in some form, shape who you become. And when you choose carefully, you begin to build a life that is not just full of activity, but steady, meaningful, and aligned with the peace you seek to maintain. A life without direction may appear busy, filled with movement and activity, yet beneath that motion there is often a quiet absence of meaning. Days pass, tasks are completed, and moments are experienced, but without intention, they can begin to blur into one another, leaving behind a sense of something unfinished, something unclaimed. To live with intentional purpose is to step out of that blur and begin to move with awareness, choosing not just to act, but to act with reason, with alignment, and with a clear sense of what truly matters to you. Intentional living begins with clarity. It asks you to look within and ask yourself what kind of life you wish to build, not in vague ideas, but in values that guide your daily decisions. When you understand what you stand for, your actions begin to reflect it. The choices you make are no longer random or reactive. They become expressions of a deeper commitment to your growth, your principles, and your direction. In this way, purpose is not something distant that you wait to find. It is something you actively shape through the way you live each day. There is a difference between being carried by time and walking with intention through it. When you are carried, you respond to whatever comes your way, adjusting yourself to fit circumstances as they arise. But when you live intentionally, you begin to influence the direction of your life rather than simply react to it. You decide where to place your energy, what to prioritize, and what to release. This does not remove uncertainty, nor does it guarantee ease, but it does give you a sense of authorship over your own path. Living with purpose also requires consistency. It is not defined by rare moments of motivation or occasional bursts of effort, but by the steady, often quiet commitment to show up as the person you aim to become. There will be days when progress feels slow, when distractions seem louder than focus, and when doubt quietly questions your direction. In those moments, purpose becomes your anchor. It reminds you why you began, and it steadies you enough to continue even when immediate results are not visible. As you begin to align your daily actions with your deeper intentions, something begins to change in the way you experience life. Decisions become clearer, distractions lose their appeal, and your time starts to feel more meaningful. You are no longer simply passing through each day. You are engaging with it, shaping it, and contributing to something that reflects your inner values. This sense of alignment brings a quiet confidence, not because everything is certain, but because you are moving with awareness rather than drifting without it. And in that awareness, a deeper kind of control emerges. Not control over every external circumstance, but control over how you choose to live, respond, and grow within them. You begin to understand that destiny is not something handed to you without your involvement. It is something influenced by the intentions you set and the actions you take. Each decision, each step, each moment of focus becomes part of a larger pattern that defines the direction of your life. To live with intentional purpose is to live with responsibility, clarity, and direction. It is to recognize that your life is not merely unfolding on its own, but is being shaped by the quiet, consistent choices you make every day. And when those choices are guided by purpose, you do not just move through life, you begin to move with it in a way that reflects who you truly are and what you are determined to become.